Hey everyone, welcome back to the Barbell Medicine YouTube channel. We have a special bearded guest today. Ooh, tell us who you are.
I am Alan Thrall. I own a gym in Sacramento, California called Untamed Strength. I am also a barbell medicine coach. I do online coaching through barbellmedicine.com, and I help out the seminars as a platform coach.
And most importantly, you train Untamed.
Yes.
Okay. So what's up? We're gonna do this 2 Minute Tuesday. I know it's an internet meme because I never do standard 2 minutes. What are we talking about today?
So in the past, you've said that your 2 Minute Tuesday videos have an 8-minute after party. And when I heard that, I chuckled. So I'm gonna consider this video, we're gonna have like a 2 or 3 minute pregame before the 2 Minute Tuesday. So
the shirt before the shirt, got it.
We have to briefly explain something before we get into it. So will you briefly define in your own words, specificity as it relates to programming training?
Sure.
Is it important? If so, why?
Okay.
So just to get that out of the way, let's talk about that real quick.
All right, so the pregame, we'll talk about what is specificity. So the way I define specificity is any movement or activity that closely mimics the test. So as it relates to training, we can consider the big three: the squat, the bench press, the deadlift, or in strength lifting, the squat, the press, and the deadlift. Any movement that closely either mimics or actually is, or are those movements, is specific. So example, a squat is very specific from a training perspective to the squat, whereas a leg press is less specific to the squat, though they both train the same muscle groups. As far as is it important, it is a very important consideration when making programming decisions for a trainee. A related term that I think we should just get out of the way first is sensitivity. So I define training sensitivity is the result you get from a given amount of training stress in a particular movement. So imagine you got 5 pounds. If you could somehow discern that you got 5 pounds on your bench press from doing 5 sets of 5 with just a regular bench press, right? And you got the same improvement from doing 3 sets of 5 close grip bench press. You would be more sensitive to the close grip bench press than the regular bench press in that sort of scenario. And so the sensitivity to training matters as well. You get desensitized to training as you continue seeing the same movements over and over again. This is part of the repeated bout effect. Repeated bout effect states that you get better at both recovering from and performing the things that you are repeatedly exposed to. So the first time you run a 5K, it's terrible, right? The second time it's less terrible, and the 100th time you run it, it's not terrible at all. It's not even a stress. In fact, it will no longer improve your ability to run a 5K.
You're answering my question before I even ask it.
That's good.
Dang it!
Well, so I think it's important to address all of these things beforehand, so that when you ask the question, I can get into the specifics of specificity without having any. I mean, this is the pregame, so we have to lay the groundwork.
Okay. So now that we've established the fact that specificity is important, it's an important factor, right? Why then does Austin, who's my coach, not have me put on a singlet every day, work up to a max or a heavy single squat, bench, and deadlift multiple times a week? Because you would think that if I practice powerlifting every day, every training day, I would get better at powerlifting, right?
Sure.
So why am I not doing that?
Well, so it's not that that's wrong. So theoretically, there's a time and a place for hyper-specific work. When you're no longer trying to build strength as much or develop it, you're trying to translate the existing strength that you have to performance. So effectively, you're saying, this is the amount of strength that I have, how do I display it maximally on the platform? So what would you do? You would squat with the belt, plus or minus a singlet, preferably with clothes, frequently. You would do the same thing with a deadlift and a bench press if you're going to a powerlifting meet, all right, with little to no variation, because at that point, you're just learning, you're hyper refining your skill, okay? Now, the more and more you expose yourself to this, again, you desensitize yourself to it over time, which is why that training doesn't work for very long. That's why peaking doesn't work for very long. Effectively, you're translating developed strength, okay, into performance, and then when you no longer are sensitive enough to that stimulus, you don't adapt anymore. You're just you've run it out, right? So that's the deal. So if you were 3 weeks out from a meet, that might be a reasonable strategy. All right, but if you're 12 weeks out from a meet, then you're trying to develop as much strength as possible, right, before it's time to, okay, now it's time to perform. If you're a novice lifter, these are not things that you're necessarily considering, but later on in your training career, when you're talking about periodizing your training over time, you want to take into consideration, well, when is my competition if I have one, right? If you're an athlete, then you are competing by definition, okay? And then how long does it take me to get into peak form? So one, how much result do I get off of being super specific, and then how long does that last? So for me, it's like a 2 or 3 week thing. That's all I have. And that's legitimately, I could just squat with a belt for every squat variation I had, bench, 1 count paused, every bench variation I had, deadlift, like a regular pull. If I do it for more than 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to actually regress because there's not enough training stimulus to preserve.
So interesting. Most people would probably respond, well, the reason you don't work up to heavy singles every single day is because it's too stressful, right? Potential for injury goes up, whatever. You can't recover from that. It's too stressful. But you might flip it and say, it's actually not stressful.
It's not stressful enough. Yeah. So I would say, I mean, does the risk of injury or pain that otherwise compromises your ability to train regularly, does that go up as the intensity goes up, as the weight on the bar goes up? I mean, maybe. I mean, if there, I think the pain in general, that whole science is super nuanced. So it'd be difficult to make that argument and make it stick, especially because injury with resistance training is super low anyway, right? So I don't know if I really buy into that. I think that people will have some psychological factors based on their expectations for training. If they think that doing heavy singles all the time is going to just really crush them, well, hey, that's going to work. If they buy into the fact that doing a bunch of deadlifts each week is going to, crush them, guess what? They're going to feel wrecked. I find that setting goals for each training block or period of time is super useful. Writing them down can be super useful. It's like a future authoring program. You're like, hey, I'm going to squat 600 at the end of the cycle. Here's how I'm going to do it. And you may even predict your numbers week to week to week. You're setting, goals for yourself, and that's your expectation. You're changing.
I thought RPE was about your mood and how you're feeling.
RPE is really about gauging readiness to train and your performance, so you can gauge what you should do on that given day. I mean, writing numbers down on paper is great until that plan no longer is valid. Right. It's like the Mike Tyson thing. Like, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. It's like, that's true. You may come in the day, and say, hey, I slept super great last night. My relationship with my significant other is going great. I just got a raise. I'm having the best day ever. I'm gonna set a PR. And then you hit your last warm up and it moves terribly, and you don't know why. I mean, honestly. And so then what? You just leave the gym? Or you just, I'm overtrained. And probably you're undertrained. Most likely you're undertrained. So, and finally, the last thing I'll say before I don't even know if we're in the middle of the party or like this is like what is this? This is like the second drink. Like,
just call it Topic Tuesday.
Topic Tuesday. The last thing I'll say on this is, if you use my paradigm to view stress recovery adaptation, there's no such thing as overtraining. And so what you can do is you can see a person accumulate a ton of stress, a lot of training, right? But it's not productive. So this is the person who's doing a training program that is very stressful, okay, but maybe super non-specific, okay, it's not very well thought out, and it just doesn't produce the results that they're looking for, which they accumulate a bunch of stress. It's just not applicable to what they wanted to do. So you don't really overtrain, you're just training wrong. I mean, that's kind of my thing. Most people are undertrained. You can take that to the bank. Most people are undertrained. And I know I said that was the last thing I'm going to say, but just, sorry.
Hey, your channel, go ahead.
I know, you have all these questions in your beard that you want to get out. The interesting thing is, the less responsive you are to training, the more training stress you need to get the same response. So we call this training resistant, anabolically resistant. So the older you are, the more female you are, the lower testosterone levels, the less broad shoulders, all these factors, the lower vertical jump, all these things make you more and more anabolically resistant, which means that you need to train more to get the same amount of adaptation as somebody who's very sensitive to training, who's the 17-year-old person who lives equidistant between IHOP and here, right? Who lives in their mom's basement and, gets to gain a ton of weight, has no job, and his girlfriend likes him.
Or possibly someone on gear, squatting once a week.
Totally, yeah. So that's the thing. You're super sensitive to training if you're on a ton of drugs as well, okay, and gaining weight. So those are like two independent mechanisms. Also the psychological process of being on anabolic steroids has been, shown over and over again. And so yeah, you're super sensitive to training, and so you respond well to even, poorly thought out training. Whereas again, if you're a 65-year-old person, right, the idea is you can't train less and get a bigger response from it. I'm not saying you don't get any response, you just don't get as much. And so if you're trying to prevent yourself from going 6 feet under, don't train less, don't do less. You have to do more and be smart about it. So, okay, that was really the last thing to say before I give you another chance to ask a question. We did the appetizer, we did the main course.
We're done, it's time for bed.
We get a dessert, no coffee at the end?
No,
No.
I'm fine.
So training specificity, super important. Just like I think the take home is, in every sport, we always criticize when somebody super specializes early on, right? So the kid who wants to be a hockey star, if you say, oh yeah, just go play only hockey from a very young age, we say, that's a dumb idea. And then the evidence again suggests that's not a good thing. So why do we champion it in resistance training, right? Especially for a non-competitive barbell, lifter. If you're not a power lifter, an Olympic lifter, right, then why are we saying only do these exercises, don't do any variation, variation's bad? Yeah. That's actually the antithesis of what sports science has shown us over time. And if you are a barbell sport athlete, okay, then doing only the competition lifts only, at some point you'll desensitize yourself to that and require copious amounts of training volume and training resources being dedicated to doing those things to get even smaller response, which is why the variations can be useful. So if you've never seen a pause squat before or a tempo squat before, you can get a bigger bang out of doing that than a regular squat. It doesn't mean stop doing regular squats. It just means that we're trying to use our training resources very economically. So training specificity matters. Variations can be important for this reason and others. And if you are anabolically resistant, you can't do less. There are no biological free lunches. We have to put in the work. Hey guys, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Thanks to our special guest, Alan Thrall, and his beard. We'll catch you guys next time on the Barbell Medicine YouTube channel.
Barbell Medicine here with you from bench to bedside.
I love it. That's good. That's good. I'm scared.
Some sort of stroke.
Yeah, he just died.
That now?
Yeah.
Are you talking about?
No, it's fine.
No, I think we'll be all right.
I think we're okay.
Okay, so same thing. So this is, but now I feel like we should switch spots.
Oh, sure.
Because it's your video. And we're starting with that one?
That's fine. Or we can look at mine.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah.
we look at mine. Are
Yeah.
we both in? Do I need to scoot
Yeah,
over?
you need to scoot over a little bit. There you go, that's better.
How do I get taller?
You don't look that much shorter in this shot.
Perfect.
Yeah.
No, we look good here.
Did you get that?
That looks fantastic.
Did you get that?
I'm impressed.
Okay.